Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live commentary. It's Superhero Rewatch. I am Captain Logan, and joining me this evening is my good buddy, Dan Torrey.
Hi, everybody.
Tonight, Dan and I are going to watch The Mask, a movie that we've talked about doing commentary on for months and months and months now. And Dan, I reviewed this on Rewind like 6 billion years ago, and it's really strange that there's not a commentary for this movie on the channel. So we're going to remedy that right now.
Yeah, this is, I guess a movie, at least when I saw it the first, many times, I didn't know that it was based on a comic book at all.
I don't think most people did, and it had that in common with Men in Black and Blade, and a lot of 90s comic book movies had that.
Yeah, so I can see why, you had other movies in your pecking order in terms of like commentaries, because it's not exactly a superhero movie kind of thing, even though it's a comic booky kind of thing. I mean, there's elements of it, but
yeah, enough that it made sense at the time to do it on Superhero Rewind, and we'll talk about
absolutely.
this as we go through it, because as far as superhero origins go, it absolutely falls into that formula, and in some places kind of circumvents it a little bit, particularly with the love interest, which we'll talk about. But by and large, it's a superhero origin movie masquerading as just an over-the-top Jim Carrey comedy. And that's the big difference between it and Men in Black, is that Men in Black nobody realized was a comic book, and then it also isn't really a superhero thing at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm glad to be here and doing a commentary on it, because this is a movie I used to watch all the time when I was young. I used to love Jim Carrey and still do, but this kind of like era of him is like my favorite, and this is one of my favorites from that kind of like 90s Jim Carrey heyday. It's awesome.
Same here, yeah. Well, I was 10 when this movie came out. I know there's a bit of an age gap between Dan and I.
Yeah.
And I was a Jim Carrey fanatic, and already was to some degree, even though he'd only had one movie, because I was obsessed with Ace Ventura. And then The Mask happens, and that really solidifies that whole thing for me, and this was really formative for me. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? If you want to watch the movie with us, and we encourage you to do so, get out your DVD or streaming service. I think this movie is streaming right now on Peacock, but if you watch the free version, if it's on the free version, because I haven't looked this up, but their stuff is kind of sticky, so they have some things that you can watch for free but with commercials, and then other things that you can only watch with a paywall. And I don't subscribe to Peacock right now, so I don't know how that works, so you would have to go take a look at that. But if you watch it with commercials, that will be difficult, because we're not watching it with commercials. But anyway, get it at timestamp 0, get ready to press play when I say now, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Dan, are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
All right, here we go. Let me just check my audio settings real quick and make sure that I don't accidentally blast everybody out with the movie itself. Okay, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. Dan, it's another New Line film.
I know.
And this is not the first New Line movie that you and I have done a commentary on. Little trivia question for Dan. Can you think of another New Line film that you have guested for a commentary for it?
Oh, absolutely. The Ninja Turtles movies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did Ninja Turtles 2 with me. 2 and 3. I think Eric did the first one years and years ago.
I think that's right. But yeah, those Turtles movies I've seen so many times that I even remember the titles at the beginning.
Music here by Randy Elderman, which is not a composer that I hear a lot of people talk about. He has an okay theme with this movie. I feel like the soundtrack is not the strongest thing about this movie as far as the orchestral score. It's mostly scored by a lot of big band swing, which is spectacular, and it almost doesn't even need the orchestral score because of that. But the theme is okay. It's real like pulp comic booky.
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking of in the opening shot of the movie, where we sort of established the funnily named Edge City, is the kind of like grit and darkness that this movie has to it. It's still, like you said, a goofy Jim Carrey comedy, but I think it's telling. Like when I rented this movie on Amazon, the description said this movie was dark and intense, um, and I kind of agree. It's not to the same degree that I've heard the comic book is, which I've never read, but I've heard. I think maybe from your review that it's like way more violent and dark and kind of cynical than
Yes.
this is. So knowing that, I guess I sort of like that they retained sort of at least some of the tone of the comic and meshed it with Jim Carrey's comedic style, which I think that's kind of cool.
And it shouldn't work, and it does.
Yeah.
Which has always been my review of this movie. It shouldn't work, but it does. The ways in which this is, air quotes, watered down from the comics and made more accessible and more family-friendly is the reason it works. And
Yeah.
that's so unusual, because usually it's usually that ruins material, and it's easy to look at a lot of things based on comics that are kind of thrown out there and want to be for everybody, and go, well, you just didn't understand the material. This kind of changes the material in necessary ways, because the comics are, and I've talked about this a lot, but they're basically like edgelord high school 90s kids writing a comic book. And you have to change that material, unless you make it a horror film, and that's the other direction this could have gone, certainly.
Absolutely. And I think, even though this movie, I agree, is like family friendly, because I watched this movie with my parents when I was young, but there are parts of it where like, the mask like shoves a muffler up two guys' butts, and
Yep.
like there's a lot of like sexual stuff that's just like very blatant, like now that I know about those things, and I'm like, how did I not realize that when I was a kid?
I had the same thing, that pate line, as
Yeah.
an adult, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, the innuendo.
Yeah, and it's more than innuendo. They reference things directly, but just being a kid, you don't really like understand that much,
Yeah. So this was Cameron Diaz's first movie, famously.
Yeah, and she's gorgeous in this movie.
Mm-hmm. That pullback shot is really funny.
Yeah, it is. What do you think of Cameron Diaz as an actress?
I generally like her in things.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen her in anything where I like thought she was bad or anything, but I haven't seen a ton of stuff she's been in.
She's definitely one of those actresses that doesn't always pick the right projects. She's kind of got the the Jennifer Garner problem.
Mm.
Although she's had probably an overall more successful career than Jennifer Garner has.
Yeah, I would say so. Does she still act in things regularly?
I can't remember the last thing I've seen her in, to be
Yeah,
brutally
me
honest
either.
with you.
I can't think of the last thing either.
But yeah, jumping back to something we were talking about a minute ago, when I was saying family friendly, I mean like relative to the comic, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's real night and day, and yet the basic premise of this certainly isn't compromised, and there's, like you said, the initial kind of darkness of it is retained to some degree, but it's just a lot more lighthearted, obviously, but also kind of more hopeful and more of an actual character study. Like I think that the comic is intentionally cynical, and cynical isn't bad on the face of it. It's just
No.
the comics aren't handled in a very mature way, and it just seems like that was written as an excuse to see a bunch of people's heads get blown off, and that's kind of all it was. So like there's a cool idea there at the start, and then it's just not handled with enough care. And the I don't know, the way that this movie is more accessible about it is in going, well, let's actually study the human condition through that, instead of just making it a catharsis, and I think that's what works about it.
Yeah. I think, some of the cynicism that it retains also comes from like Jim Carrey as a comedian as well, because he's a guy that's got some like demons and talks about those kind of things. And if you watch other movies he's been in, like Cable Guy, like that's definitely a movie about like someone who has like obsessive mental problems, and it gets like really dark, even though it's funny. This movie never gets that dark, but I think it's kind of in the same vein as that movie in many ways.
Yeah, he does, and even in his comedies, Jim Carrey does a lot of roles about repression.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's so brilliant about his performance in this is that he's actually having to, in these scenes as Stanley Ipkiss, reel stuff in real hard. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it works, and he's really good at it. You know, you see flashes of characters he'll play later when he's out of the mask in these scenes, like his character in Liar Liar and stuff, where it's like the Liar Liar guy if he was trying to reel everything in and mask his inhibitions.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the comedic version of the Hulk, I guess, where like, you know, the thing that the audience came to see is used somewhat sparingly. They build up to it, and when it actually happens, it's like awesome. And Jim Carrey does play a more like normal version of himself, because the rubber man face thing is what he's saving for when he goes crazy and it has superpowers and everything. It's a cool premise, like that works really well with, I think, what he does as a performer.
Yeah, he's playing the antithesis to what he usually plays, and also what he usually plays in the same movie as the yin and yang. So it's fun to see Jim Carrey playing the guy who obviously would like to just come out and say whatever he's thinking about a person to their face and be the crazy wacky goofball. It's like that guy raised by the same parents who just as an adult decides to reel it in because he's scared of everything, instead of like, because he is still like the big kid, right? Like he's obsessed with cartoons and he's constantly reading comics and stuff, but he keeps all that stuff inside because he's afraid that it's not socially acceptable.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what makes it cathartic and what makes this movie relatable. I mean, who hasn't like had to repress some of their inner thoughts because it's not like acceptable in polite society? Like, I think everyone has had a thought about a boss they've had in their life. They wanted to go like stuff it, or like a customer that treats you poorly if you've worked in customer service before, like Stanley Ipkiss does. And with the mask, the fantasy of it is that you just get to do anything that comes to your mind, and like the consequences don't really matter, because you have superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. And importantly, Ipkiss, or the version of Ipkiss that we see at the beginning of the movie, because obviously he has an opportunity for change in a character arc, and the Mask himself, neither of them are the real Stanley Ipkiss, and we get something closer to who he really is supposed to be inside by the end of the movie, when he's embraced both of them and done what the psychiatrist guy suggests, which is be both Stanley and the Mask, because they're both the same beautiful person.
Yeah, it's like that concept in like psychology. They talk about the shadow, how you're supposed to like take the dark sides of your personality that like most people repress and like integrate it into your personality, so you have control over it and you become like self-actualized and all those sorts of things. I think that's kind of I liked the therapy scene because I think it shows that they're actually trying to play with those themes in the movie.
And Stanley Ipkiss wouldn't have anything like as many problems as he has if only he had won Ben Stein's money. Stephen Murphy, and I was going to say this a minute ago, and we talked over the scene, but he says that the black guy in that scene earlier with the mobster is Luke Cage's dad. That's Reggie Kathy. I forget how his last name is pronounced. He passed away a couple of years ago, I think, and and it's so weird to see him this young, because I've mostly only seen that guy as an older man, and the place that I first saw him. Well, I guess this was the place I first saw him, but the first place that I thought I had seen him was, of course, in House of Cards as Freddy, who's my favorite character in that show, and I know Dan was a big fan of that character too. But that's who that is.
No, he's awesome.
It's that guy.
I didn't realize that was him, because
25 years earlier.
When you said Luke Cage's dad, I was like, I don't know who that is because I've never seen that show. But Freddy, that actor's awesome. He plays Reed Richards. No. Sue Storm's and Johnny Storm's
father
dad in Fantastic Four too.
Yep. So, there's a couple things that I didn't talk about in the rewind that I realized later on in later viewings, because this is one of those movies where I tend to pick up on new things every time I see it, but these are actually criticisms. There's a couple of like character motivation things, or just like I don't know why characters are behaving so counter to the way you would think a real person would behave, that I never picked up on before. Ipkiss never calls out his friend for bailing on him in this scene, and I don't understand that.
I think maybe they're trying to like say how much of a like loser Stanley Ipkiss is, that he wouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Okay, but then you need the scene later when he's standing up to himself to finally say something about it. Like when he stands up to his boss at the bank and his friend comes up, I forget that guy's name, and he's like, "Wow, that was amazing." Stanley should turn around and be like, "You're right, it was, and also you a-hole for this thing that you did to me earlier." That's how that scene should have gone. And the other one, in case I forget to talk about it when we get to that scene, is Tina is gonna be told by Stanley that he knows the mask and that they're friends, and tries to set them up on a date together, and she should be like, "Wait, you're friends with a bank robber?" Because it's played as really endearing, but I think we're supposed to just conveniently forget in those scenes that he's a criminal.
Yeah. I do like the sort of stylized comic booky look of this movie. Like, this really like old timey car that definitely would not still be running. It's just cool. It's kind of got that like almost Batman 89 or like animated series sort of like old-timey city timeless look.
And it took all the right cues from 89, because a lot of comic book movies, particularly superhero movies, were looking at 89 and just trying to be Batman no matter what they were, even if it wasn't really appropriate, like the Flash TV show. And and
that's
this,
like the best example.
Yeah, I always bring that up. And this, not too long after that, of course, we're only in 94 here, is, like I said, taking the right examples, so or the right cues from that. So it goes, well, let's make it impossible to peg the time period we're in, and exactly. it looks and feels a lot like, the 1930s or 40s.
Especially with the music that you mentioned earlier, like the big swing band.
Yeah, because everybody just goes to the swing club, and nobody's talking about, how outdated the music is. There's not any contrast with any other music in the movie. It's like, it's all swing. There's this kind of Roger Rabbit quality throughout this movie, which I think is intentional, by the way, because there's so much, animation influence.
I wouldn't be surprised.
In the film, and I think, I would even go as far as to say they cast Cameron Diaz because she looks a little bit like Jessica Rabbit, and there's scenes where she's like photographed and shot that way, and she has the same job, like, they're looking at that stuff, I think. But one of the things that makes it kind of odd that it's as stylized as it is, like you were mentioning, is that sometimes it can't decide how cartoony a world these characters think they're living in, and that's always been the biggest internal logic issue that I have with this movie, is that everybody just kind of accepts all the like crazy impossible stuff that the mask does, and I just need like any other supernatural stuff going on in this world at all, because I find that sometimes a little bit difficult to swallow.
That's fair. I kind of always chalked it up to the stylistic nature of the world, like you had said, but no, I can see where you're coming from. I do think it's cool, especially, given that this is like a comic booky thing, that his main like geeky hobby is collecting and watching, like collecting cartoon memorabilia and like watching cartoons. I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that all the cartoony stuff he does as the mask comes from something,
Yeah.
And we foreshadow and set up a lot of the gags that he'll do. He's watching, the dog in a Tex Avery cartoon right now. I think that's probably a Tex Avery cartoon. And he'll do exactly that same thing later on. We set up a lot of those things, and even more of them than I remembered. And not just with the cartoony stuff. Like, I had forgotten that we set up the keys gag at the end in the scene with the dog, where he says, like, go get the keys, and then in the third act you've got the whole keys cheese gag. I'd forgotten that there was a setup for that.
Yeah, no, this is a very tight script. There's not a lot of fat, A
lot of care taken in that.
Yeah, it's very well done.
And it's also really fun about like character names, and they're reflecting something about characters' personalities, their prevailing character trait, and it also it does that like old school comic book thing. And this comes from the comics, but I think it plays and has a different layer in this to some degree. It's Stanley Kiss, like kiss up kind of. I think that's intentional, and most names in this are done that way. But also, a lot of, if you watch this with subtitles, you'll notice that a lot of the swing songs have lyrics that reflect what's going on in a scene in some way.
Oh, really? I'm going to have to notice that.
Thematically.
I have subtitles on right now, as a matter of fact.
Good job. How well do you think this movie holds up visually, as far as visual effects and CG?
The last time I watched it, which was a number of years ago, I thought it held up pretty well, but maybe I'll feel differently about it this time. I don't know.
I think.
How do you feel about it?
Well, there are, and I'll point them out. Honestly, this is one of them. There are some visual effect shots that I think could be made yesterday, and it's astounding that they hold up as well as they do from 1994, and were done obviously with more primitive software and differently than we would do it now. There are other shots that are technically very dated that don't matter to me because of the cartoony nature of it. I think it covers a multitude of sins just by the nature of it not having to look realistic.
Yeah, exactly. I think, again, for me, even the stuff that looks more cartoony, like you mentioned, it's the tone of the movie and the look of the world too, because you already at the beginning feel like you're in a cartoon with the painted background of the city, and it's all smoky and gritty looking. It looks like an establishing shot from an old timey 1930s movie or something.
It's able to get away with so much just because of the tone of it.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of folks in the comments throwing out some tidbits that I just haven't mentioned because I don't want to miss anything that we want to talk about. But it's a short movie, and I'm afraid we're going to miss a bunch of stuff we want to talk about. I like the gag of both of them are wearing green face paint.
Yeah.
Blue Dragon 5 says Carrey improvised smoking from Snazzy, apparently. I had also read that. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's way better than Snazzy.
That would not have been probably a memorable tagline.
No, and they use that as a tagline and everything, because I love this movie so much. I used to watch the animated series, and I had a bunch of the action figures and stuff when I was a kid.
It was fun.
And on all the packages and in the animated series in the intro, what Jim Carrey says, "Smoking," it was everywhere.
That was pretty good. That was good.
Thank you.
When I was a kid, I was told by adults that I could do a pitch-perfect Jim Carrey impression, and I did it all the time for people at parties and stuff, and I was obnoxious, I am sure. And then my voice changed, and I couldn't do it anymore.
I used to do an impression of Jim Carrey as the Grinch when I was a kid, because I used to love that movie, and around Christmas time I used to make my family laugh doing that.
That's really funny. I saw that one time when I was a kid, and I couldn't stand it, and I've
never
sat all the way through it again. Yeah.
Oh, that's a movie I watch every year with my family. That's
really?
A ritual for us.
God,
We're
I can't
weirdos.
do it. And it's a little after my time. I wasn't a kid when that came out, and I was very critical of it, and I can't speak to it now. I've not gone back to it, but I remember really hating it.
That's fair.
So this scene, and I feel like I've mentioned this in other videos before, but this is the scene where I feel like the Mask is closest to his comic book counterpart, when he'll pull out a Tommy gun and just start, firing on these guys, and just gets lucky. Stanley Ipkiss is so lucky that nobody gets killed in this movie. Like, the only reason it's not a horror film is because the script decided it wasn't a horror film. Like, it absolutely should be.
Yeah, and he's, like, gunning people down in the nightclub, like, during the, like, fight at the end of the movie, too. Like, there's a lot of, like, violence in this movie.
Yeah. I'm not sure if any of them die either, but I guess if they do, it's okay, because they're thugs.
Yeah.
There's this really funny line toward the end of the movie, I can't remember who has it, where somebody goes, "What kind of thug are you?" And I'm like, I don't know, the normal kind that do bad, mean things to people? Like, I don't know. But yeah, the Tommy gun gag is great, and that was one of the big things that stuck with me from when I was a kid. I also love the juxtaposition of this. He's firing on those guys. I don't know if he misses on purpose, or like I said, if he just gets lucky. And then immediately after he does this, like, relatively scary thing, he goes, "I could become a superhero!"
Yeah. And the Tommy gun also, I always thought was cool because it's a very, like, old school weapon from, like, that was like a submachine gun used by, like, gangsters in the early 20th century. It was issued to soldiers in World War II. So, like, that also lends to the, like, timelessness thing about it.
And they're doing that kind of iconography because they've made it a pseudo gangster film.
Yeah, exactly.
This is very much a right time, right place kind of movie, and I think, again, there's so many different directions you could have gone with this, that the filmmakers were just super smart in doing it that way, in going back to '89 and stuff, because, I mean, it could have been virtually any setting with any kind of character. Like, it didn't have to be a superhero vigilante type thing. But in walking that line, it's, I think, in a not cynical way, or at least it's made less cynical because the movie's good, I guess. You know what I mean? Because because the story is decently well written. It's more for everybody in that way.
Absolutely.
Stephen Murphy. Oh, see, I forgot that was actually out of the comic. That's probably why I was thinking this is the scene that's most like the comics, because I had read the comics right before I did the rewind, but that was years ago, and I haven't read them since because I didn't like them. I should review those at some point and see if maybe I feel differently about it, 8, 9, 10 years later. But Stephen Murphy, the Tommy gun and the Mechanic Revenge are the only comic book scenes adapted, only nobody dies.
Yeah. I mean, with the shoving the mufflers up their butts, we just don't see if they died. I'm sure they may have.
Yeah, and then Bruce Almighty rips that scene off.
Oh yeah, that's right.
With the monkeys out of the... I guess it's the inverse, because it's monkeys flying out of somebody's butts, but yeah. That sentence was great. I'm not even going to apologize for that. For somebody's butts. Another just amusing logic thing is, because we play pretty fast and loose with how exactly the mass powers work, and to some degree I think you have to do that, but I don't understand the thing with the pajamas. So there's a scene later where the mass tie comes off, and it turns into the print of these pajamas. And it's the only thing in the whole movie that does that, and it breaks my brain, because the Mask is able to pull anything out of nowhere that he wants because he's a cartoon character, right? Mm-hmm. But the tie has to be, adapted or made from the clothes he's wearing already. And once you put that kind of logic in it, it just breaks me, because everything else doesn't make any sense after that. It's like, well,
interesting.
Well, why does he have to rob a bank? Why can't he just make a bunch of money come up? Well, okay, maybe the logic of that is if he handed somebody a dollar bill, it would turn into his pajamas. But that doesn't seem to be the case with everything, because he's making a bunch of stuff all the time, and we don't conveniently ever see what happens to anything he leaves behind, besides the tie. So it's just a little bit inconsistent, and it doesn't quite work. And it doesn't break the movie, but it's just an amusing thing to complain about, I think.
Yeah, I just always assumed that it was like the mask transformed his pajamas into the suit he was wearing. So like when it gets cut, it turns back into what it was normally. But
Yeah.
oh, I forgot that we showed these guys. I guess they're not dead.
Yeah, nobody dies.
This lady always reminded me kind of April O'Neil.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's intentional or not. I mean, probably not. But she's a news reporter in a superhero movie, and they could have tried to make her look more like a Lois Lane, but they didn't do that, so...
Yeah. I mean, if anything, she is like de facto influenced by Lois Lane, because that's just like the source of the inspiration for so many of the comic book like love interesty characters.
Yeah. And that's the big subversion that this movie will do on the superhero formula, is that's the archetypal female love interest, and the hero doesn't get with her, and she ends up being a scumbag who double crosses him, and you're not expecting that, and I think that plays really well. I doubt anybody was expecting that in the movie. And the most impressive thing is that by the end, at least in the context of the absurdity of this movie, I actually buy him getting with the, hot way out of his league chick, and that shouldn't work. It's surprising that it does.
Yeah, and I think, this movie kind of makes their relationship work because you see like how much she dislikes being mistreated in the sort of gangster wife girlfriend lifestyle that she's chosen to involve herself in. And Stanley Ipkiss is the complete opposite of that. He's just like he's a guy that makes an honest living and like tries to be a good person. And I think that's why she ends up liking him by the end,
Yeah, and he doesn't see women as pieces of meat. And
exactly.
It's interesting that the reporter says that the reason that she is all enamored with Stanley and all of her readers are from the column that she wrote about him is because he is not a womanizer and because he respects women, and all of the things that she claims that will turn out not to be true about why she likes him. I mean, maybe she liked him initially, but, like, she pretends to be into him and isn't, is actually all of the reasons that the real love interest is. And I think we're supposed to question throughout the movie if we can trust her or not, if we can trust Tina. And so she's the red herring. And then when we get to the end, it turns out that Tina was actually a pretty good person all along. She was just, like, in with the wrong crowd and had kind of... This is going to be an odd comparison, but I guess she had the same thing that the main character in Sister Act has, the Glory character, the Gloria character.
She kind of reminds me of Mary Jane, too.
Sure.
That's what I always used to think of, because she's like, the girl
good
that
call.
Puts on the party girl thing, and she's from a rough background and all that kind of stuff.
But she kind of plays up maybe to some degree in a kind of airheaded thing, but she's actually got a brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephen Murphy, I did remember that Kellaway was a comic character. Stanley and Kellaway are the two main comic characters that they bring
awesome.
into the film. But in the comics, they'll keep giving different people the mask, and you'll see how it kind of just turns everybody into the same like narcissistic psychopath, but they're like all different people from different backgrounds. And I always thought that you easily could have made sequels to this movie, and I've said this before, but in totally different genres. And I would have really liked to have seen that, where you kind of can retroactively contrast each of them and see how the mask affects and influences each person that wears it.
Yeah, no, I like the kind of like mythological connection that we get with like the Loki stuff in here too. It would have been interesting in a sequel to like delve into more of what that means, but we all know what happened with the movie that they made to continue this.
And what's funny is that movie actually did that, unfortunately, and that's one of the things that was awful about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Where they got Bob Hoskins to be Odin, and he thought he was just doing a voiceover, and then when he got there, they made him put on a big helmet, and he was like, wait, why do I have to do this? And he was pissed.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Oh my god. That's one of the best things I've heard all week.
I think this is a really creative way for a evil mob boss to punish an underling. Like I'd never seen this exactly in a movie before, and it gets its PG-13. It says, you know, in the rating for some scenes of like over the top or like cartoonish violence, but like this is one of the hardest things in the movie for a kid to watch. This is like something out of Dark Knight or something.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And you actually see him hit the ball too.
Of like gangster film stuff in it, and this is definitely one of those scenes.
I think it also does a decent job of subverting expectations in making the main mob boss here the red herring villain, where like you assume that he'll be the bad guy that will get the mask at the end.
Yeah.
And then it's actually Dorian who will get his revenge on him at the end. And as the Dorian mask, I just thought of this. He should have pulled out golf clubs at the end, right? That should have been how he kills him.
Oh, it's dream time.
Blue Dragon 5 says he also hit the nose if you look. Yeah, it's rough.
Oh yeah, I think that was the entire point. Because if he just hit the golf ball,
that still would have potentially made his mouth bleed, though.
I don't think so. He was holding like a tea.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, but Blue Dragon 5 saying that it actually, like, hit his nose and not just the tea. Because, like, if he hit the tea real hard, it wouldn't have to hit his nose to still make his mouth bleed.
No, I'm saying that was the gangster's intention the entire time. He was, like, lining it up so that he would hit his nose.
He would hit his nose.
Yeah.
I can safely say, in my 37 years of life, I've never had this conversation. I think it's a nice touch. The dog licking him thing at the end. We've all had that dream where something in real life makes it take a really bizarre turn.
And and I love that. When I was a kid, I used to always love when the dog had the mask on at the end. I always thought that was really cool. And like the dog's like inner personality comes out in the same way that like Ipkiss does. Yeah. Because like there's stuff that the like dog like does that they set up earlier in the movie as a, you know, their inhibition going away. Oh, did you see that? On his coffee table there was an Avengers comic under all of the
I did not see that.
Yeah.
I wonder which one it was.
It looks like an 80s older one.
Let's be irritating Uber nerds and go back and pause it and then try to figure out what the number was. Oh, I guess we don't have time.
Oh.
The movie does a wonderful job of building anticipation for every time Stanley puts the mask on. He wears it a little bit longer each time he's got it.
It's like an addiction.
And I think one of the reasons that a thing like this appeals to kids is because of the way that plays like a superhero. When I was a kid, I would always judge superhero movies by how often the character was actually in the costume. Because I would be bored in the interim scenes where it's like, there's too much Bruce Wayne, there's not enough Batman. This movie, it's almost like it knows that kids are waiting for these scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that it's keeping the kids in mind? Because it really watches like it is. You know, to some degree.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's not making it a kiddie movie, but I just think that it's really intelligent in trying to appeal to multiple audiences on different levels.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there was obviously an intention to appeal to a young audience by how it was marketed and the fact that they made an animated cartoon of it.
Yep.
So, I mean, that definitely had to be a consideration when they were making the film. I doubt they, like, you know, the producers, like, watched the completed film and were like, all right, I guess we can sell this to kids. I feel like that was probably at least in someone's head the entire time that worked on the movie.
Tom just put in a $2 super chat and said, so are we doing a double feature, Mask and Mask 2? No, we're not. That's not to say that there will never be a commentary on Son of the Mask, because I would like to eventually have commentaries on most every movie that I've reviewed on Superhero Rewind. Even the really awful ones that make me want to gouge my own eyes out. But we're not doing that tonight.
When is the HBO Max Mask show gonna come out?
Yeah, that should happen. I don't know if you're joking or being facetious, but there's legs there. There's every reason to make that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I want to see another one without Jim Carrey. But
see, I don't have that with The Mask, and I used to. But I still think that this idea can be done with any kind of character in any kind of genre. So and that's the problem, is that a decades later reboot, they won't do it the way I want them to do it. They won't go, let's make it a totally different thing. Let's take the initial premise of The Mask and give it to a totally different kind of character that doesn't care about cartoons and not make it a straight-up comedy. They won't do it that way. It'll have to appeal to, all of the nostalgic iconography and everything, and that's irritating. But boy, in a perfect world, I don't have to have Jim Carrey. It just needs to not be a guy pretending to be Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it'll be like Pete Davidson in a yellow suit with the mask on, like pretending to be a cartoon, just not as good as Jim Carrey or something,
Because as much as I'm praising this for, changing things from the source material in the right ways, I also think you can do a more sophisticated version of what the comics did and make it more of a horror thing. This is one of the few, more relatively lighthearted movies that I actually wouldn't mind seeing the dark, gritty, 2020s version of. There's every reason to make that. I don't think it'll ever happen, but there's every reason to make that.
Yeah, because there is, like we said, a dark undertone to all of this,
Yeah.
They live in kind of an industrial hellscape. And, there's gangsters and old... this is an old, it's like a comic booky version of an over-the-top mafia cabaret club from back in the, and in the times when the mafia was really powerful.
Well, they basically, and I don't know how we didn't make this reference earlier, but they basically live in the world of Dick Tracy, and they just don't know it.
Yeah, he's even got the yellow suit on.
I would watch that show, too, where the Mask is just like a detective.
Yeah. It'll be like, what's that Batman series where the Riddler was a detective, but with the mask?
Yeah. Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I wanted them to just make a series that was just a Riddler series, but...
Yeah, that'd be awesome, too.
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
The Mask is in the scene, doing all this crazy stuff in the background, and she's just, doing her performance normally and, not noticing.
And see, that's really fun, but at the same time, it takes me out a little bit, because whenever... And I'm glad you brought that up, because this is what I'm talking about with the internal logic question. Again, does not break the movie. It's fun for me to complain about this, so I'm going to.
Yeah.
I don't get how free will works when he's wearing the mask with anybody around him. Because they have their cake and eat it too real hard with that. Sometimes the Mask seems totally in control and can make anybody do whatever he wants them to around him, particularly in the big dance number later. And then at other times, and sometimes even at the same time, there's other people that he either can't or just chooses for no good reason not to control. And this is one of those places where I'm like, okay, you've got these band members that are suddenly playing this song, and he changes one of their outfits, and then he just looks at them, and they get all excited, and they start playing. Are they being controlled by him now, or are we just in a world of cartoon characters that seem more cartoony than they do the rest of the time when the movie decides it's a cartoon now? I don't know.
I guess I always saw it as just the Mask is a way for Stanley Ipkiss's cartoon fantasies to be realized, and he can affect reality to the degree that can happen. But I mean, I don't know. I never really thought that hard about it. So
I know, I do that.
I'm just like, when I was a kid, I was like, he's makes a funny wolf face.
No, me too. I mean, I didn't think about that until I wrote about it. And for all these years, whenever I think about this movie, I've been preoccupied by that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're right, except when characters make decisions of their own accord and their own free will when they're around him. Like, how come when he's coming on to her later in the park, she is able to resist that?
He says that he likes it. He acts like it's like a French romantic thing.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
And this gangster guy having a conflict with him is very exciting, you know? Because, like, you know, it gives him the opportunity to be a superhero. He has a villain of his own.
Mr. Romano puts in a $2 super chat. Who in Geekvolution would put on the mask of Loki? You know, one question I've always had is how influenced Stanley Ipkiss is by the mask to put on the mask.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder.
Because when he first gets it, he automatically starts to put it up to his face. And I don't know about you, but if I saw an ancient wooden mask floating in the river, in like the river or the ocean, my first thought would not be put it up to my face.
Yeah, that is true.
And then later...
I would definitely not do that either. I would definitely clean it first.
Later, after he's put it on for the first time, he has the Spider-Man thing where he starts thinking about using it to his own ends, you know, damn the consequences, which is one of the things that I really appreciate about the story, because it's kind of the natural thing that any, especially younger guy, would probably think to do. And then he tries to resist it initially, which makes him more sympathetic, where he goes, I know if I put this on, I have a better chance at getting with the girl because she liked me and she danced with me while I was wearing it. I'm getting ahead of us. We haven't gotten to that scene yet. But he'll try to put it on, or he'll be about to put it on, and he was like, no, I shouldn't do that. And he throws it over the bed, and then he goes, screw it. And then he jumps over the bed and he goes and gets it. And in that moment, I don't think it's the mask influencing him to put it on necessarily. But the first time he picks it up, it's gotta be. Why else would you do it? It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I love this stuff. This scene was always one of my favorites back in the day.
Yep.
Especially like when he starts, you know, doing like the fake Oscar performances and stuff.
Yeah, and then Dorian and the other guy are just like looking out, breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
What do they think they're looking at right now? It's really funny. Like, I love the absurdity of all of that, as at the same time I can't help but ask the logic questions. Like, what do these people think is going on right now?
You got me, partner.
But it's really refreshing the ways in which everybody plays it straight, especially the way we make comic book movies a lot now.
Yeah. It's not like self-aware, like, isn't this stupid?
Yeah.
I like that it's like...
No, I'd rather err on the side of everybody just...
funny, you know?
Yeah, I'd rather err on the side of everybody just, like, takes it in stride and is fine with it, than everybody goes, that guy looks dumb!
Yeah.
I like how terrible the prop Oscar is.
I know. It's not even the right color.
Like, he could have made a real Oscar. Why did he make it like that? Maybe that's what Oscars in this world look like. Because we're not looking at the real world here.
And apparently Sally Field and her insane Oscar speech exists in this world.
There's a lot of stuff like that where we just go to a bunch of pop culture references that feel like they should happen later because this feels like it's early. But then, like you said, it has that Batman animated series thing where it's like, well, they have, like, you know, 90s-esque computers while at the same time the TV is all in black and white. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No, it's great. One thing we haven't talked about yet is the brilliant makeup work in this with the mask. When I was a kid, I assumed that part of that must have been a visual effect, and none of it is. He's wearing that entire thing as a prosthetic, and the teeth are real, and that's wild.
Yeah, the teeth look really cool too. I always thought that was a nice touch because they totally could have just like the face makeup is like cool enough, like it looks really good. But the teeth, like giving him that big goofy cartoony grin, I think it really helps with visually making the design pop.
Here's the bit with that tie. See, we do it. This is why it irked me. The only reason we do it is so that there is a clue. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
We need it to move the plot along. Oh, can I nitpick something else? So,
Yes.
in this scene, he's going to go to the closet and find out that he stole a bunch of money that he didn't realize he stole because he thought it was a dream. And then he's going to push all of, or no, I guess at this point he doesn't think it's a dream. But anyway, he's like, oh no, I did steal all that money. So he's going to try to push it all in this closet, right?
Yeah.
And it's clearly impossible for him to get all of that money in that closet. And then at the point that he finally opens up the door to talk to Calloway, he has somehow magically gotten every dollar back in that closet. There's no way. And I think it's really funny. So this is one of the, and famously, one of the greatest film dogs of all time. And one of the main reasons is just this scene where he keeps holding on to the frisbee while Stanley is like flinging him around everywhere. That is a professional.
It is. I wonder how involved like teaching a dog actor is. It must be pretty involved.
Oh yeah, definitely. And he's basically our hero's sidekick in this.
Yeah.
You know, I never had this thought before, and I guess I should have, because I always saw that as, again, a kind of typical like 90s comedy cynical thing where it's like we got to put a dog in there to make it funnier, and then it totally wins me over on it, and it doesn't feel that way at all. But I wonder if it's not a dog just because Stanley wishes that he lived his life like a real life cartoon, and a lot of cartoons just have sidekick dogs.
Yeah, I wonder. It reminds me kind of like Crypto the Super Dog and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's also the reason that I always wanted a beagle. If I was gonna have a dog, I always wanted a beagle, and I don't know if this is a beagle, but it looks close to a beagle. I feel like I said it was a beagle once and somebody argued with me it's not a beagle, but it looks like a beagle to me. I don't really know what dog breeds.
I don't think it is because the ears look different than a beagle, but I can see why you'd think that. They're like a similar size and they've got similar like color patterning.
Okay. And then in Enterprise, Captain Archer has a beagle. And between those two, it made me always want a beagle.
Yeah.
Blue Dragon 5 says also a nod to the Tex Avery dog. I'm sure. But yeah, especially because it's going to look like a Tex Avery dog once it puts the mask on.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Roboto, what if the person who puts on the mask is not wearing a shirt? Does the tie still get shot off? See, these are questions I don't have answers for.
Imagine, if you will, a universe that makes absolutely no sense.
You're about to walk through the scary door.
The scary door.
Senior Nerd puts in a $5 super chat. Thanks very much. There were 3 Saturday morning cartoons in the 90s based on Jim Carrey movies. That is true. The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber, and all three lasted 1 season. And one of these things is not like the others because 2 of those were movies that were aimed very much at solely adult audiences, and it was inappropriate, I think, to make cartoon shows out of them. And this was the one that I think it was more warranted and kind of more fair to do that. But the other 2 feel like cynical cash grabs to me. Ace Ventura is not for children. We all watched it.
Yeah. There's like a straight up sex scene in that movie with Courtney Cox.
That is true. I forgot about that. Yeah, has it ever occurred to you that in 2 of Jim Carrey's most popular movies, he was dating or married to 2 of the 3 girls from Friends? He's been involved with both Courtney Cox and what's her face, Rachel in Bruce Almighty.
Jennifer Aniston?
Yeah, Jennifer Aniston. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that he dated Jennifer Aniston too.
No, I don't mean that he did. I'm just saying that like Jim Carrey played characters that played with both of those actresses.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
And I think that's funny.
Yeah.
Daniel Davis says Ace Ventura is just child-friendly and how silly the character is. Yeah, in the sense that it would appeal to children, but I don't think that makes it appropriate for kids. Maybe that's just me.
A Dumb and Dumber cartoon sounds like a weird idea to me.
Yeah, I never saw that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
At least with Ace Ventura, you could do, like, you know, cartoony animal stuff. This lends itself to being a cartoon, obviously, because it's so inspired by those things. A Dumb and Dumber cartoon is just like two stupid guys. Like,
and I've never seen it. I'm going to assume that it also was just a thing that was aimed at children. But I feel like the only thing to do with Dumb and Dumber is to kind of crib Beavis and Butthead or something. Like, that should be a Nickelodeon show made for adults, right?
Maybe, yeah.
It probably wasn't.
Or just make it like Three Stooges and be like slapstick comedy, maybe where they like fall over and go boom or something. I don't know.
Bob the Hunt, Pet Detective isn't for kids. Pet Detective sounds like a children's film. Go watch it, and then you be the judge. Tom Chiller, Super Chat. Was a strange time we also had a Beetlejuice show. That's fair. Well, and I mean, like, RoboCop got a cartoon. There's a lot of stuff that was, you know, R-rated or not aimed at children that had a lot of inappropriate humor and stuff for them that we then turned into kids' cartoons. Senior says, it was bad. It was on ABC. I mean, like, I don't like to be this guy, but I know it's bad just from knowing it exists. There's no way that's good. So now he's going to do the whole, like, you know, Clark Kent, oh, Superman's a friend of mine thing. And like I said, I just think it's really funny because his friend is a bank robber, not a superhero.
The Mask is a great friend of mine.
I've never done this before, but I'm imagining now all the masks behind Ben Stein here, what characters they would turn people into if you could put them on and then they transformed you, like what they'd look like.
It's so weird to me that Ben Stein is, like, in movies. He's just, like, a rich guy, like a businessman that, like, was in movies and, like, a lot of them.
Yeah. He was really popular, and I've always loved Ben Stein. Weird. I think he's hilarious. One of the things I like about Ben Stein is that he became famous simply for knowing things.
Yeah.
It's like if Alex Trebek was in everything.
And now he's like a crazy Fox News grandpa. Like, he just goes on Fox News shows all the time.
Yeah.
I always thought this scene was really funny.
Yeah, I think this is some of the funniest stuff Jim Carrey does in the entire movie. I was watching this with my son Freddie today, who overall doesn't like this movie, and I don't know why, because he's obsessed with like old Warner Brothers cartoons and stuff, and you'd think he'd be all over this. He doesn't like this movie. He thinks this scene is hilarious.
Why doesn't he like this movie?
I don't know. Jason likes this movie.
That's so funny.
And Jason and I reviewed this on Father and Son a few months ago, so you might be hearing me say some things that I said on that if you watched that show, guys. But Jason said that he enjoys the story of this movie a lot, but he just doesn't think it's funny, and I think that's interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Or he doesn't think it's laugh out loud funny.
Huh.
And that makes me wonder if, I mean, obviously Jason is a sample set of one, but that makes me wonder just what, like, sensibilities of kids growing up now are like versus what mine were and what you know, our generation more was. Like, if this is a thing you put out and aim at kids now, if kids, like, you know, find it appealing and accept it, or if they're like, that's my parents' comedy. I don't know. I just wonder.
If they're not doing a TikTok dance to Lizzo, it's not funny.
Hey, that was really close, what we just watched, okay? That could have... There just wasn't music behind it, but that could have been a TikTok...
Lizzo
this is the TikTok dance!
Yeah, exactly.
be
That should
fantastic.
be the Geekvolution TikTok, like how you get like followers on TikTok. Just like take movie scenes and put terrible music over them.
I should do that. The funniest, intentionally referential name in this movie is Landfill Park. It's the best.
That's awesome.
They go to Landfill Park, and then they watch the sunset and talk about how romantic it looks because of all the fumes in the air. It's spectacular.
It's
Because of all the
amazing.
pollution. Some nice satire there. Stephen Murphy, your kids don't understand why your parents like this. But yeah, we've got like an almost aurora borealis of smog in the sky. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. That's like what I was talking about earlier. It's like that kind of painted background with the grit to it. I always thought that was cool. It also gives the movie kind of an old-timey feel, because they totally could have just made that a shot of like like New York, like just actually filmed the city, you know?
Well, and I think maybe one of the things that makes Stanley Ipkiss a more kind of endearing character is that he lives in, such a messed up world where, like, it feels, I don't know, it feels kind of quaint and old-fashioned, but if you start thinking about it, like you were talking about earlier, like, it's really messed up. Like, they live in Edge City, and they have Landfill Park, and there's smog everywhere, and they romanticize the smog.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes everybody around him more, cynical and sad and pathetic, and he just wants to, he just wants to live positively and take the right lessons from cartoons, right?
Yeah, it's like it's endearing, but it's also kind of insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fact that he's not at all affected by how horrible the hellscape he lives in is, you know?
Well, maybe it's a defense mechanism. Like, I have to keep basically being a child because all the adults suck.
Yeah.
Tom, here's another $5 super chat. Who is Loki? He is Alan Cunningham or Tom Hiddleston, depending on who you're asking. Yep, that's true, Tom.
It's so true.
So yeah, these guys are watching a guy freeze in midair, and it
they're totally unfazed by it.
just accept it.
No, unfreeze.
And like a lot of the comedy comes from that, so I've always been so torn. Like, it's hilarious, but also I don't understand.
Yeah. And he's totally unfazed by the fact that this guy has a giant green cartoon face at the outset, let alone him freezing in midair.
And then later,
like,
with
if you
all
saw a man like this in real life, you'd be like,
yeah. And your mind would be blown. You wouldn't be able to understand it. You'd lose sleep over it. Like,
yeah.
Later on, he's going to actually somehow buy that all of the impossible things that he's seen are explained by a rubber $1.99 Halloween mask. Oh, that explains everything. Like, yeah, maybe he just thinks he's a magician or something, but a line about that would have helped, where he's like, oh, well, it must have all been sleight of hand, or he had mirrors or something. He doesn't say that. He's just like, oh, he's got a rubber mask. Guess that explains it.
See, that's how competent Edge City police are. They find one piece of evidence, and without any further investigation, they're like, case closed.
And that's why this world needs the mask as a superhero.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, Stanley Ipkiss is just going to get rid of the mask at the end. So the best hope you have for a superhero is either the dog or the best friend who just wants to get laid. So like, it's probably not going to happen. Chewbacca's lover says they canceled Pepe Le Pew for what the mask just did here. Oh, that's true.
Don't tell anyone. Otherwise, they'll cancel the mask, too.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, we need to be hush hush about that. So this, of course, is the scene from this movie. This is the big moment that everybody remembers, and this kind of thing could have easily taken over the whole movie. And I love how reeled in they are about it, where they have one big crazy dance number. They didn't feel the need to make the whole thing a musical. They don't do this again. They don't do the Ghostbusters 2016 thing. Where, like, it just feels like it comes out of nowhere because we can't think of funny things to do. Like, this just feels like what this guy would do, and...
Yeah, and that's what's so funny about it. Like, the fact that a guy exists that would do this in the face of the entire police force aiming their firearms at him.
And again, there's a real important distinction between, this being the exaggerated total conclusion of what Stanley Ipkiss wishes he was, as opposed to this is who he really actually is deep inside.
Exactly.
I've always really liked, and I talked about this in the Rewind, the kind of existential thing, the identity idea that the masks we wear, like, the mask isn't him taking off his mask and putting on his real face. It also is a mask.
Yeah, it's all of the, like, parts of his personality that he suppresses, like, exclusively coming to the surface and forming another kind of personality.
Yeah.
Like, he likes dance, but not enough to, like, do it when he's, like, about to be killed. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also, he is a closeted... Would you agree with this? Stanley Ipkiss is a closeted extrovert. Like, he's actually not naturally an introverted person. He just forces himself to be so reserved because he's afraid of people. And what might happen if he takes risks, right? So he wants to be the life of the party sometimes and doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't want to be this guy. He doesn't want to actually be always the life of the party.
Yeah.
To the point where the whole world revolves around him and everybody is just his playthings. And that's what he's doing here. Like, is this really just a distraction so that he can get away from the police? Or was he just looking for an excuse to do something like this the whole time?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. But to your point, I think, that's the reason why it's cool that Dorian, like, the bad guy, puts the mask on at the end. Because, like, he would like everyone to be his plaything. Because he's, like, this gangster that wants to control the city.
Yep. Yeah, and the scary thing about that character is that, and he could have been more developed, absolutely, but the scary thing about that character is that there is that question if deep down inside that's actually who that guy really is, as opposed to who he wishes he could be.
Yeah, exactly.
What does it do to a person who's not far enough away, who's like, I don't know, who doesn't take the right lessons from fear? Like, fear is important.
Right. She drives a Mustang. It's a nice car.
We all missed him. Yeah, everybody in this movie is a terrible shot, except for when the movie needs someone to be shot.
Yeah.
That's a great newspaper. More and more I'm finding myself taking stock of great movie newspapers because I want to start a collection of replica newspapers for movies. I think that would be such a cool thing. And there's a lot of Etsy stores that sell, like, perfect replicas of newspapers for movies, and I think that's one of them. I want to make a whole wall of them at some point. I think that would be so cool.
I would like to have, like, a Daily Bugle one, like the design from the Raimi movies with some title on it. I feel like that'd be cool.
There's a Ghostbusters one I want. I want the ones from, and I mean, I don't even like this movie, but I want the ones from Superman Returns, where it's where they have the two that they print, because they don't know what's going to happen to Superman. Is it that movie where one says Superman is dead and the other one says Superman lives? I want those side by side. That would be cool.
That would be cool. A Daily Planet one would be pretty cool too. Like you said.
There's a couple of cool newspapers from the 78 from the 78 film.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So yeah, this is the scene where you think that he's going to get with the girl that he's really supposed to be with. and then yoink.
Exactly.
And I think it works pretty well.
I do too. The 50 thou.
Nobody says thou.
No.
You're not cool. It's grand.
50 G's, 50K. Not 50 thou.
Yeah, grand K, like even spell out 50,000 and say something stupid like simoleons is better. Like
you get the 50 big ones there.
You get the 50,000 smackaroos.
Yeah, there you go.
This movie's watching at a clip, man.
That. He just like has the red light on him, like he's like this super evil guy, and he goes, "I lied."
That's really funny. And he doesn't have to turn that on. He doesn't have to turn on the red light.
Yeah, exactly.
You just put it on.
There you go. You could be a screenwriter.
I've also seen this movie a bunch.
I know.
So
I love how that's the reaction that this henchman has upon seeing like a demonic cloud form above his boss's head. Like, you might want to be careful.
Yeah, like, what kind of advice is that? How can you be careful? So, if am I then still putting on the mask or not? What does being careful mean in this situation? Another criticism I've always had, minor criticism I've always had about this movie is Dorian is still, well, okay, I'm mixed on it the more I've thought about it. He's still a little too cartoony in the mask, where he does like scarier versions of some of the kinds of things Stanley would do, where like he's not motivated by the same things and influenced by the same things Stanley is. So why does he spit out bullets? That's kind of a cartoon thing to do. But at the same time, you could just chalk it up to Loki.
I think it's because the mask is like the Venom symbiote, and it inherited his love for cartoons, like Venom did with the spider symbol and spider powers.
Oh, I like that. I like that. There's no evidence for that whatsoever in the film, but I like it.
There's no evidence whatsoever for that in the film.
I want that to be what it is. I like the cut of your BS, Dan. I really do. That piece of wood inherited character traits from the last person that wore that piece of wood on his face.
That's how they're going to explain it in the HBO Max show. Haven't you heard?
Is that what they're going to do?
Yeah. So Pete Davidson could be a cartoon character.
You know what the difference is? It's fine to have a standalone mask universe in a way that it's weird to do it with Venom.
Oh, God. Then they can do the mask multiverse. And Jim Carrey mask can meet Pete Davidson mask. It'll be fantastic. All the fans will come.
What is that voice? Like, who are you doing right now?
It's a coked up producer voice.
Oh, the cool kids are watching the HBO Mask shared universe
with green faces, and they'll talk to each other. It'll be great.
We'll call everything something big head. That's what the Mask is called in the comics. He's not the Mask, he's Big Head.
Oh, interesting.
And not a reference to that at all in this movie, which I might have thrown that in there somewhere.
I feel like they could have improved on Big Head. Like, they could have come up with a better name.
And I don't disagree with that. But...
Is that a Dark Horse comic?
Yes.
That must have been like one of the early ones, like when they first started or something. Or actually, I don't know when Dark Horse started. I just assumed it was like 80s, 90s. But
I think Dark Horse starts in the 80s, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up.
I used to really like Dark Horse. But now that they've lost like all of their library to Disney. I
Yeah,
don't.
it's not their fault, but
Yeah.
Dark Horse is, I think, these days making most of its money publishing like geeky reference books and stuff. They're going more the DK route now. They're
Yeah.
making some great stuff like that. They did the Super Mario Brothers Encyclopedia. And it's killer.
Yeah, they did a few Zelda books. Those were like the first ones they did with Nintendo, and then I guess they let them do a Mario one too, which is awesome.
It's just weird to have the Dark Horse logo on a Mario thing.
I know,
So
it is
strange.
weird. And they probably still make money off of whatever, I'm sure Hellboy sells a certain amount of paperback copies every year.
Yeah, but oh yeah, good call. Like just their old stock
Yeah.
stuff that they keep in print. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody in the comments is saying we're right about 80s. I mean, I figured it must be, but
We were wrong. It started in 1910, folks.
they have a curious, believable chemistry. And this could have not worked at all if you had the wrong actor on either side of it.
Yeah, I think the relationship is pretty well done in this movie. It doesn't seem like overly cheesy. Like, this movie is kind of, schmaltzy and cheesy in some ways, but I think that's part of the charm of it.
I think it owns it. I mean, I think from the beginning it's that, it knows it's that, and I'm fine with it. It's not it's not pretending to be any smarter or more serious than it is. And that's why it gets away with the dog stuff. Cuz I hate that in most movies. And it just works in this world. I don't know.
I think we should have Zack Snyder direct the HBO Max show when they make it. It'd be pretty awesome.
So I know I say this all the time with stuff, but as long as he's not writing it, he could be okay for it. He really could. If it's not this, if it's a more horror-driven version, if they did something closer to the Dark Horse books, but hopefully just a little bit more sophisticated and less cynical. Okay, the Snyder from 2009 might have been good for that. He might have kind of lost his mind somewhere along the way, and I don't know if he'll ever make a movie I like again, but
yeah. In the Netflix offices, they're just like, Army of Darkness was terrible. What do we do next? Give Zack Snyder the mask. That's all we have left.
I mean, I'm a crazy person. I enjoyed Army of... What was it called? It's not Army
of the Dead?
Army of the Dead.
I just heard it was...
Sorry,
I just watched the Red Letter Media video and it sounded
hilarious. For a second,
hilarious.
I just started saying Army of Darkness. I'm like, that's not the name of that movie. But
Army
yeah...
of the Dead.
I actually filled my sign green on Army of the Dead. It's not a good movie, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I'm sure on a second viewing I'd be like, oh, wait a minute. But I don't know.
I enjoyed Venom 2, and that's a horrible movie, so I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I could not bring myself to enjoy that on any level. I tried.
Oh, man. That was one of the, most fun times I've had at the movies in a long time.
I'm glad, because it was one of the most dreadful movie experiences I've ever had, and I didn't want to go back to the theater after that, and thank God I liked the new Bond movie, or I'd be done with movie theaters.
I'm excited to see that. I want to see that movie and The Last Duel.
Oh, I'm interested in that too, yeah. Now we've dated this commentary.
I know.
Mr. Roboto, $2 Super Chat. Imagine if Brock bonded to Venom and then put on the mask. That's interesting. I also think that a Venom mask crossover in comics could be cool.
It could.
There's some neat identity stuff you could do with that.
As long as it's the Tom Hardy version. That's what we need.
Would you stop it? No, because what I like to see is comic mask that actually understands that character in the first place, or comic Venom, and says, Venom and Brock are initially two separate entities that form to make one entity, more or less, and the mask is interestingly kind of that, but not really that. So I mean, they would be really interesting to compare. Because the mask, unless you're Dan Torrey, making up stuff that's not in the movie, is not a character unto himself. He just
that's very true. Yeah.
He just brings out the internal lust and longing and what a person wishes they could be deep down. So you put that with Venom. That in the right or wrong hands, depending on how you look at it, the symbiote also sort of does that.
I want the symbiote in that crossover to possess just the mask, like not the person, the mask, just like the witch mask. So it's just like a Venom head that like hops around.
Okay, see, I don't think that's how it would work, though. I don't think the symbiote would possess the mask. I think the symbiote would put on the mask.
It doesn't have to make sense. This is the multiverse.
And then, yeah, but I think it would be more fun if the symbiote puts on the mask and then the mask brings out its inhibitions.
I've always wanted to be something other than a piece of wood.
It's the
No, I'm just stone.
The symbiotes we wear.
You know what would happen if Venom put on the mask?
What's that?
Be Carnage.
He would just run around and constantly yell, "Apologize! Apologize!"
Woody Harrelson is so bad in that movie. I love it so much.
Did you have the thing I did? Dan and I haven't talked for a long time, so forgive us for going off the rails here, but did you have the thing I did where the first time around I didn't hear any Bane in the Venom voice, but the second movie, Bane was all over that voice?
I didn't have that.
When you see it again,
I think that if I rewatch it,
look for that, because especially anytime Bane is speechifying in that movie, like when he's got the microphone at the football game, where he goes into that is where he sounds like Bane with the Venom voice.
Well, that would be fitting because Venom also uses a microphone in Venom 2.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Actually, I think that's the scene where he most sounds like Bane too.
Oh man.
Oh no. If you and I do a commentary on that, like we did with the first Venom movie, it will be such a lopsided commentary because you will constantly laugh at things that I don't think are funny at all, and because I couldn't even enjoy that on a so bad it's good level. Like it just made me angry, and it shouldn't have. Like it should have been impossible for that movie to disappoint me, and somehow it did. Like
yeah, I just expected it to be like trash, and it was.
So did I, but somehow worse than anyway. Let's get back to the mask.
You Venom 2.
Tom, $2 super chat. I did a little bit. Tom, I don't know what you're talking about. He did something a little bit. He's referring to something we said. I'm not sure what.
That is typical Tom behavior. He will just say things out of context.
I'm sorry, Tom. I just don't know what you were referring to. There's Austin in the comments. Hi, Austin.
Hello. How's it going, Austin?
Usually Austin is my co-host on Friday nights. I had to bump him for this. I felt real bad about it.
Oh, I'm sorry I took Austin's job.
Well, you and I have been wanting to do this forever, and this was the night I had. And he understood. He was totally cool about it. But I would have invited him to join us, except he gets off later on Fridays.
True. No, but now that I have a normal person working schedule, we should do something this more often.
That would be wonderful. I'd love to have you on more often. Cause I miss it, man. This feels like I don't know if you're having this, but it's been so long since we've done a thing like this, and with a good movie too.
Yeah.
Because we've done a lot of not good things the last few times we got together. It feels like 8 years ago to me right now. This feels like 2013, 2014 Geekvolution to me.
I know. The commentary's coming out great.
I think we're doing a remarkable job.
We're doing a fantastic job, folks. Everyone's saying it. Even though we dated this commentary with, references like that. And
a 4-minute Venom 2 review.
Yeah.
Daniel Davis says more Dan is a good thing.
Dude, you should as a joke just clip out the Venom 2 clips and post it as a review.
Post it as a review? Why does Cap keep looking off to the side during this whole 4-minute review? What is he staring at the whole time?
See, this is one of the things that I thought was cool about this movie as a kid. Like you said, the gangstery stuff. Like now they're in a casino. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, they're still in the Coco Bongo Club, but now they're doing the casinos.
Started it into.
Did it have?
acquired slot machines and tables, apparently.
Yeah, like, I was going to say, was it a casino all along, or did they just bring those things in for this party? And if this is just for a party, did they do this because of 89? Because we came into this scene on a roulette table exactly like the party scene at the beginning of 89 opens.
It's very true. This club also needs an enema. So here we go.
Another thing that is very amusing about the scene that I never noticed before is they're doing a charity ball here. Again, it's a charity ball in '89 too for the 200th anniversary festival for the city. In this, it's for the War Orphan Fund. I don't know what war just happened that there were orphans over.
Maybe Desert Storm? What year was this?
This is 94, but there are no references to anything real world except for pop culture things, and we keep talking about how out of time it is, so I'm like, is it World War I? Is it World War II? Is it a made-up war that they never mentioned that's just in this universe?
They forgot to tell us that Stanley Ipkiss was a World War II veteran as well.
Tom just left a super chat about that. I swear to God, I did not read the super chat before I made that point. He also had the same question. He wrote, War Orphan Funds, what war? Exactly. Day Ghost leaves a $6.99 Canadian super chat, so thanks for the 50 cents. Dan, you took my job, you jerk. I'm living on welfare with 6 kids and a dog. My wife doesn't love me anymore because I can't bring in any money.
It sounds like you spent the last of your maple bucks on a super chat, and you're that poor. It's a bad decision.
Order pizza for your 6 children. Maple bucks.
I would love to see what Austin's children would be named, because they'd probably be named something terrible just as a gag. Like all of them would have horrible names.
Oh, definitely.
One would be named Man Thing.
All of I was gonna say something similar. All of Austin's kids would be full names as a first name, but would still have his last name. So. It'd be like Michael Jackson Emery Smith, with also a middle name.
It's like the people from Spanish culture who have a name that takes 2 minutes to say.
Thomas Lowe just left a super chat and said he's donating to the Day Ghost Welfare Fund. This has really gone off the rails. You guys notice that we basically said everything we had to say about the Mask in the first 2/3 of the Mask, and now...
Yeah, the third act is kind of, just kind of wrapping stuff up, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's the logical culmination of everything. We're seeing Stanley Ipkiss finally stand up for himself and be the hero without the mask.
Yeah, now we got kind of the girl tied to the train tracks thing going on, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is typical, but you kind of got to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
The dynamite box just looks like it should say Acme on it. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll get one more big crowd-pleasing mask sequence. So he's taken his opportunity for change. He's gonna put his life on the line to save his girlfriend, and he's taking risks now. And it's important that he does that before he puts the mask on again. So then, when he puts the mask on, now he's now acting like some combination of the Stanley Ipkiss we've seen and the mask. And then when he puts the mask on, it won't be the same character he's been playing, but it also is that. The mask will now transform into some combination of the mask and the Stanley Ipkiss that we've had through the film, I would say.
Yeah. They integrate their shadows. I wonder, it would be interesting to see Mask 2099.
Yeah.
Stanley Ipkiss is fully him and the mask are the same person.
And he's 109 years old.
Yeah. He lives in this world, and it's future tech, and he's the god who rules the city as a benevolent god.
That's great. And he has to leave the mask on so that he doesn't age, but then that doesn't work because he would turn back into Stanley Ipkiss during the day.
Or he could turn to dust because that's the logic. And it doesn't have, and this is a cartoon.
Sure. Sure. Stephen Murphy, I think it was, said that this is a silly movie, so it should be a silly commentary.
That's true. That's true. If I wrote the sequel to The Mask, I would just do all kinds of things that wouldn't make sense, and I would just like throw my hands up. It's a cartoon.
Just use that as an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Humor me for a minute, Dan. If
Yeah.
you were to run with my notion of The Mask could be, like, sequels to this could be in any genre, and you made a sequel that wasn't a straight-up comedy, I don't mean that it wouldn't have to have, that it couldn't have comedic elements and stuff, of course, but, like, this was a, like, comic gangster thing with, broad comedy. What's another cool genre you think you could do with it?
I think maybe you could do it as like a Western or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like because it's like so influenced by like pop culture, you'd want to do like one of the classic American like film genres. Like this, like you said, plays with like gangster film stuff. And they do have a little bit of the Western, stuff when he like plays the cowboy during the Oscar scene. But it would be cool to like, see the prior adventures of the Mask in the River, like someone in the Old West finds it. That'd be cool. Edge City out on the frontier back when it was founded.
I think the biggest that's really funny. I think the biggest crowd pleasing thing that happens. Yeah, but it's not like the Mask. It's not like Loki is from Edge City or like.
Oh, in this universe, this is my Mask universe.
Oh.
This is Loki. See, Loki took Asgard, like in JMS's Thor Run, and put it on Earth. But instead of making it Asgard, he made it industrial hellscape called Edge City, and that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, I feel like if you can do that, then I can throw it in Jurassic Park and give it to one of the raptors. But anyway, this is, I think, the biggest crowd-pleasing moment in the movie, and maybe the thing that really put the whole thing over the top, particularly for families, when the dog gets the mask. Because it feels like an obvious payoff, and again, part of the culmination of everything that's been going on in the movie, but it would have been a missed opportunity to not do it, but it easily could have not done it. And I think part of the reason that it was such a big deal, too, is because that is some risky stuff with where CG is at this point. And it's some of the stuff that looks the least real and most dates it. But again, because it's a cartoon character, it still holds up okay. It still works all right.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look that much worse than, like, the CGI Scooby-Doo effect that we got in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies,
Yeah.
Maybe a little worse, but
in some scenes it looks it looks flatter than in others.
Yeah.
It's weird, like this close up that we get right before he takes the mask off is actually a place where it looks the best. And there's some parts where it's like farther off that it looks flatter and is less convincing.
Yeah.
Weird.
And it looks like they animated just the face, and like the body was like the real dog body at that point when he was holding him.
And sometimes that helps it to look more real, and sometimes that actually hurts it. It's weird.
Yeah. I wonder who did the special effects for this movie, if it was ILM or not.
I don't remember. So I just had this thought. It's fun that the Mask now is going to be at his most heroic, and he is straight up the good guy. Because he's kind of, his own worst enemy before this, right? And now he's just the straight up good guy. He's going to pull out big guns and not fire them. I mean, like there's that's on purpose. There's a clear arc that's happened now, even with the Mask, not just Ipkiss. But he's wearing the gangster costume. So, like, he's wearing the bad guy suit as he's become the hero. That's on purpose.
And he's quoting Dirty Harry, who's like a homicidal police officer.
Good call, yeah. I mean, he's basically... I just thought of this, too. He's basically the Joker right now, but a good guy. Because he's got the bang guns, and he's wearing, like, I mean, it's not a Joker suit, but it's the kinds of stuff that the Joker thugs, at least, and the Joker in a couple scenes, is wearing in '89. I wonder how intentional that is.
Oh no, yeah, the Joker often like wears stuff like that in the comics and stuff.
And I realized that there was a Masked Joker crossover comic,
Was
and
there?
maybe even a couple, I'm not sure, which people tell me is not good and boring, and I've never read it. But I never thought that was an interesting premise. Like, what would happen if the Joker put on the mask? He'd be the Joker with superpowers? Like, that's what he'd be. It wouldn't change him in any way, right? Like, he's not holding himself back. That's the point of the Joker, is the question of whether he's an insane person or a totally sane person who just decided that he doesn't have to hold himself back. Who cares if that guy puts on the mask?
It's just like the most boring what if premise ever. What if the Joker had a green face?
What if the Joker was bald but had a green face?
What if the Joker was basically the Red Skull with a green face?
You know what, though? There are premises in the What If cartoon series that are less interesting than that.
Oh my god. I got like 10 minutes into the first episode of that, and I was like, this is not for me. Especially after hearing some of like the premises of the other episodes, like, what if Black Panther was Star-Lord? Like, that's... what?
And it's even worse than it sounds. You just wouldn't even believe it. And that was supposed to get a spin-off series. And the only reason they didn't make it a series is because Chadwick Boseman passed away.
Right, actually. Maybe I was thinking of something else.
Oh, Austin, that's hilarious. He says The Mask should have a crossover with Halloween 3. That's great.
Oh, man.
That's
That'd
great.
be awesome. What if Michael Myers had a green face?
Dale Davis says The Mask / Lobo was okay. I didn't realize there was a Lobo crossover.
Stanley's favorite DC character crossed over with the Mask.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Stanley likes
They
Lobo?
always ask him, they're like, who's your favorite DC character? And he's like, Lobo. It's so weird.
That is weird. Why?
I don't know. He never elaborates. He just says it's Lobo and moves on.
It sounds like he pulled that out of a hat once. What's the most obscure DC character I can think of that will impress people that I know it? Lobo! Well, we're in the last scene, guys. Right at the end.
Music on radio playing.
So I don't know why you're still friends with this guy.
Yeah, this guy's awful.
He's not a good person. And he's going to go get the mask and prove it to you. If he ever gets to put it on. I like that the dog is like, get that away from that guy. It's probably not that, though. It's probably just the dog wants to be the mask some more.
I know, right?
If we made this movie now, this is how cynical we are now. I think that if this movie gets made now, the dog gets a whole bunch of, like animated short films about him wearing the mask.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
That's what would happen.
And they'd all be terrible. It'd be awesome.
It would be that Pixar thing where, like, the breakout character has to have a bunch of short films.
Oh my god.
Now, don't get me wrong, some of those are good, but that's what we would do.
We need Mask Origins dog. That'd be amazing. Just like X-Men Origins Wolverine, but with the dog.
Now, that immediately improves that material. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 Super Chat. Glad Dan is with us on the anti-MCU train. I mean, that's... I don't want to speak for Dan. For me, that's oversimplifying things, but I don't know how Dan feels about that.
I like some of their movies, but I think we will be talking about this at length at some point in the future.
At some point in the possibly very near future, yeah. So, let me nitpick something else.
Yes.
Or at least just complain about a taste issue I have.
Cap hates the font. The credits are terrible.
Well, I'm actually going to complain about the credits for a minute. So, I don't like it when movies, and I can't think of a lot of examples of this, but this movie does it, so I'll mention it here. I don't like it when movies like end with the big theme or one of the big themes of the movie, and like that's a great thing to leave you with, and it gets that in your head again. And then immediately when the credits start rolling, it has to play the pop song from the movie. And it's like interrupt the movie music. And no, you should be more seamless than that. Like, if the movie's got to have the pop song, that's fine. Put it like later in the credits, but at least let the credits roll for a while you're playing the music that you ended the film with. I don't like immediately interrupting it.
The only time I like that is when Venom plays at the end of Venom. That's the only time I like it.
But even with that, like, it wasn't jarring in that way. Like, you didn't. If memory serves,
it was jarring, but in the right way.
In a different way. But what I'm saying is, I love that all we're doing is comparing this to Venom. But but if memory serves, there wasn't really music playing before that. It was just, and now Venom. And with this, it's like you got the great bombastic swing stuff, and then now we got to have a modern pop song that doesn't sound anything like this movie. Like, I hate that.
Did you see that one of the costume designers' last names was Sexsmith? What's with that?
That is either the most unfortunate last name or the best last name. Like,
yeah. Especially when you design costumes.
I also like the idea of making a last name, like a really mundane, normal person, like, there's way too many of them, last name, unique, by just putting the word sex in front of it.
Yeah. No, there's so many.
It's Agent Smith. It's Agent Sex Smith.
Let's do it with some of these people's names. Marilyn D. Sexhart.
Miles Sex Reed. This is fun. I'm enjoying this game. Yeah, Angela Sex Jackson.
Harrison Sex Gibbs.
Wow, Craig Clark is doing double duty there. Craig Sex Clark.
David Sex Farmer.
How much longer are we going to do this? Tony Sex Sereno.
We should probably stop yelling sex on your PG content.
No, it's okay. It's part of a word. Oh, man, I have missed Dan.
I missed you too, man. It's been a long time.
You know, you're one of the only people I can think of that I'm comfortable just saying sex 1,000 times with. It is ILM. There's Steve Spaz Williams, who 3 years after this will do Spawn.
Oh, really?
Mr. Roboto, Taylor Super Chat, what if Todd McFarlane wore the mask? He would buy way more $1 million baseballs. That's for certain. And earlier, you or somebody else asked, "What if Spawn wore the mask?" And I'll also respond to that saying he would fulfill his lifelong ambition, which was to be proactive.
Yeah. Would Spawn be proactive, or like
get up off his butt and leave the alleyway?
Yeah, or would he just like get lazier? I feel like that would be awesome. Like just Spawn but lazier. You know, like he just becomes obese.
Spawn on the mask is just sitting on a couch eating Cheetos?
Yeah, exactly.
That's all he does. For 1994, long credits.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is like today's credits, but a lot of credits for 1994. And of course, this was a big special effects film.
It's crazy that this movie, like, you know, looking back, the special effects... A special effects picture like this, it seems so quaint now, you know?
Austin has been making fun of me constantly lately because one time I referred to a film as a picture and he just won't stop.
Oh, and it always reminds me of just like old-timey Hollywood, like...
Yeah.
But yeah, because, I don't know, like, directors like Martin Scorsese, like, I've heard him say, like, picture before. It is a thing, but it is like, very, like,
can you
old.
not say that anymore? I feel like, I get if, like, the young kids coming up reviewing movies or making movies don't want to say picture anymore, but I'm 37, I grew up with Sissel and Ebert, I feel like I have earned the right to say picture.
True.
Mark Sex Kaufman. Okay, I'm done.
Are any of these people the creators? Oh, Frank Darabont was thanked. That's interesting. Why'd they thank him?
There was a Harold Ramis thank you too, and I don't know what that was about. Did I see that right? I think it was Harold Ramis.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure why. I should also point out that this movie probably technically has the most incidental, non-original music of any superhero movie from this period.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Never thought of that.
Thank God, no animals were harmed in the making of this film.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of dogs, so it easily could have happened.
No, that's very true.
I mean, he's got some stunts. I never get tired of that movie, man.
No, me either. It's fantastic.
It's excellent. It's wonderful.
Now they're going to set up the next 4 movies in the post-credit scene.
We just get like, we keep interrupting the credits with different people putting on the mask, and it makes no sense because there's only one of them. We just keep doing it.
Oh man, who are the like most terrible but like would be funny actors that you'd want to be in Mask sequels as a Mask character?
Well,
like Gary Busey, I feel like he'd be awesome. His face is weird looking.
I would have liked. Oh man, I'm drawing blanks now. I can't think of it. I had a thing and I can't. Jeff Goldblum as the Mask, that'd be good.
Yeah, he'd do something like, it would still be funny, but it would be like very different than this, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, mine is Gary Busey. That's what I pick. Or James Woods, that'd be awesome too.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for... Oh, no, Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald with the Mask would have been great.
Oh, man, that'd be amazing.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching the Mask commentary. I've been wanting to do this forever, and Dan, I'm so satisfied with the experience we just had watching that together.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I don't know why. I've always wanted to do that with you specifically, and then when I pitched it to you, I didn't even realize that you were a Jim Carrey fan, and then I was like, yay, I'm so glad that Dan wants to do this, because I don't know why. I just thought it would be fun to watch it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of sensed, like, my sense of humor, like, oh, he must be a Jim Carrey fan, like, subconsciously, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, folks, we will hopefully see Dan again in the not-too-distant future. Let's do the James Bond thing. Dan Torrey will return. And thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you with lots more content here on Geekflution in the coming days and weeks. In the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was Dan Torrey.
I was Dan. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thank you for having me, Cap, as always.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for being here live, everybody that's still here in the comments, and thanks for watching after the fact.